Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 5:30 News on KPAX, Montana's news leader.
Good evening, I'm Jill Valley.
And I'm Dennis Bragg. 4,000 acres now burning at the Sunrise Fire southeast of Superior, and evacuations continue at Sunrise Creek and Quartz Creek.
MTN's Eric Clement spoke to crews today about the challenges they're facing in the lower Clark Fork Valley.
This fire, Sunrise Fire, is packed with challenges. So we've got historically dry conditions coupled with super rocky, steep, really challenging, inaccessible areas. Creates a situation where we have a really dangerous situation for our firefighters and for the public.
Despite those challenges, roughly 400 men and women are taking on this nearly 4,000-acre blaze. Crews say they're doing what they can to mitigate any danger.
Can't mitigate everything, so we have eyes on the ground, we have lookouts, keeping an eye on what's happening, and when it gets too dangerous, we disengage our troops, and we also move people out, and that's what we did when we had to pull a stage 3 with the sheriff.
Homeowners are taking this evacuation notice very seriously. They're leaving their homes in droves, taking with them RVs, campers, and tractor trailers loaded with possessions they don't want to lose. Firefighters are doing their best to ensure none of these homes burn up, but they're not leaving anything to chance. Before evacuations are requested, crews ask themselves how quickly could a fire be stopped if it moves in near homes.
And if we can't stop it quickly, that's when that threshold is crossed, and we start moving people out as quickly as we can.
Those not currently under evacuation are encouraged to be proactive and help ensure their properties remain safe.
Keeping things green, water, remove all the combustible materials around their place. You know, that helps us out a bunch.
Near Superior, Eric Clements, MTN News.
The Red Cross has set up a shelter for evacuees at Superior High School at 410 Arizona Avenue in Superior. The phone number to reach the Montana Red Cross for more information is 1-800-272-6668. Now look for greater thunderstorm coverage today compared to recent days. And for the latest on our changing weather, let's now go to Chief Meteorologist Aaron Yost from the Storm Tracker Weather Center.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing some activity out there across the southwest quarter of the state. A lot of it confined there, but we might see a little bit of it creeping a little bit further north than we've seen the last few days, including the Missoula area and perhaps even up towards the Mission Valley. Now, this was downtown Hamilton earlier this afternoon. Our First Security Bank iCam, you can see some of those darker clouds starting to build in. Now, although our overall thunderstorm coverage area is a little bit greater than what we've seen over the last few days, it's still not a ton of activity. This is going to be our best bet, though, I think, for the extended forecast. Another very hot and dry weather pattern, unfortunately, is right around the corner. More details coming up.
The Lolo Peak fire nearly doubles in size and for the first time is burning in the Lolo Creek drainage. The fire southwest of Missoula had one of its most active days yet Wednesday, growing to more than 2,900 acres by this morning as it filled in some of the gaps in areas that have been burning since being started by lightning. That put up an impressive column of smoke yesterday, but more importantly, the fire is now into the very upper reaches of the South Fork of Lolo Creek, and there have been spot fires on the west side of that valley. The fire is also trying to break over Lantern Ridge above the Lolo Creek Valley. We talked with Operations Chief Rick Miller as he returned from his latest recon flight over the Lantern Ridge area this afternoon.
Likely to probably move towards Lantern Ridge throughout the day, depending on whether the cloud cover breaks and it gets sunlight and wind on it, but it was starting to burn fairly active.
The Forest Service and its cooperating agencies are working to complete their plan to encircle the Lolo Peak fire with miles of control line extending down the Highway 12 corridor and then south along the Bitterroot front to Bass Creek south of Florence. Crews are mapping and building those fire breaks just in case the fire tries to come down the drainages into the foothills and the valley floor. A public meeting to discuss the Lolo Peak fire will be held at 7 tonight at the Florence Carlton Community Church on Old Highway 93. The event will also be live streamed on the Bitterroot National Forest Facebook page and later will be posted onto the Lolo National Forest Facebook page.
The Sapphire Complex fires burning in the Rock Creek area have grown to more than 6,600 acres. A community meeting to talk about that one will be held at 7 o'clock tonight at the Rock Creek Fisherman's Mercantile. There are more than 330 people assigned to fight these fires. The Little Hogback fire has burned more than 4,400 acres. It's not contained at all. The Goat Creek fire has torched 2,700 acres at 5% containment. The Granite County Sheriff's Office has issued yellow level notices for residents on Brewster Creek Road and for those who live between mile marker 5 and 13 on Rock Creek Road. Those folks need to be prepared in case an evacuation is called. The Slide Rock fire has burned a little over 500 acres. It is 5% contained. U.S. Senator Steve Daines' office announced this afternoon FEMA has approved emergency funding for the Lodgepole Complex fires burning in eastern Montana. The Lodgepole Complex is made up of multiple fires that have burned some 270,000 acres in Garfield County. The Bullock administration told MTN News that it applied for a fire management assistance grant from the Federal Emergency Management Agency last week, but that request was denied. The governor's administration appealed the denial, and Montana's U.S. Senators Jon Tester and Steve Daines and Representative Greg Gianforte urged FEMA to reconsider. The grant is 75% federal money, 25% state money, and that's a match that can be applied to fire suppression costs, including fire camps and evacuation shelters. A well-known Arlee auto salvage yard went up in flames today after a grass fire tore through the property, destroying hundreds of cars. And fire crews from St. Ignatius to Frenchtown, even tribal firefighting crews, put everything they had into fighting this one, including using helicopters to dump water and retardant over and over again to keep the fire from spreading. The fire at Kelly's Auto Salvage in Arlee pumped a huge plume of black smoke in the air. We spoke with the owner. He told us he has lost about 500 cars. Many were just left smoldering shells of steel. The fire crews got there around 2:30, but that fire moved fast through the yard. Nobody was hurt, and they did keep the fire from spreading, but the danger now is toxic smoke. A neighbor who lives right next to the business grabbed a hose to protect his own property and says that fire moved fast.
Oh yes, the cars would sound like firecrackers and tin cans, just exploding everywhere.
The worst problem we have is air quality is horrible. For breathing, the tires are burning, fuel is burning, the paint on the cars, everything in this whole yard is toxic.
Now, fire crews are going to stay there to get all the hot spots out. That could take some time. This is a big property. If you can avoid the area, do so because of the danger of smoke. They also believe they know where the fire started, and they're now investigating how it started. For the very latest on all of our Fire Watch news, including in-depth details on every fire burning in Montana and our fire weather forecast, make sure to download the KPAX mobile app. It is free in the App Store, or you can get it on Google Play. Just search for KPAX.
In other news this afternoon, the company that proposed digging a gravel pit just north of the Frenchtown school system says they're withdrawing those plans. Nelcon notified Frenchtown School Superintendent Wednesday that they were withdrawing their application out of the respect and courtesy for the Frenchtown School District. Tuesday evening, you remember, we showed you how nearly 200 concerned Frenchtown residents turned out, where they made it clear at a meeting that they did not want a gravel pit in their backyard. Providers of Medicaid services in Montana are facing substantial cuts as a result of the budget actions by the legislature and Governor Bullock. Governor Bullock today showed that, they showed up in full force at a hearing in Helena to object to the proposed cuts that could be coming. MTN's Mike Dennison was there and files his story.
State revenue missed a key target last month, and according to a law signed by the governor in May, that means a series of budget cuts must occur. Among them is a proposed 3.5% cut in rates paid to those providing services for the poor and disabled under Medicaid for mental health, assisted living, nursing homes, and other programs. An operator of an assisted living center in Churchill said the cutbacks mean the money won't be there to keep a 94-year-old and a 97-year-old in her facility.
Because of the Medicaid rates and the cuts in Medicaid, my hands are tied. I am going to be forced to move these two beautiful people out of their home at those ages. That is absurd. It's ridiculous.
Another operator from Polson said the rate cuts mean it will be even harder to hire and retain workers at assisted living homes.
How can you convince someone to come and do the dirty work that's required to care for the elderly in our state when they can make more money at a Starbucks? How do I do that?
Other in-home care businesses said Montanans who need care sometimes end up getting sent out of state because providers here can't afford to offer needed services. Janessa Hendon of Consumer Direct Care told of an injured logger who had to be moved last week to a nursing home in Washington state after 14 years of home care in Montana.
He died Thursday afternoon alone, away from home and out of state, because we failed him. Together, the state and the providers failed him because we can't come to a sensible solution on these rate cuts.
Bullock administration officials say their hands are tied because laws passed by the legislature dictate $26 million in cuts in Medicaid rates this year and next. But many of those who testified said Bullock has consistently undervalued or ignored local providers of care for the poor and disabled. They noted that people working at state institutions like the State Mental Hospital in Warm Springs aren't seeing any big cuts and are getting a small raise as well. Under the law, the Bullock administration may not have many other options to cut the human service budget. But for the people who testified here today, they clearly want the governor to look elsewhere to absorb the pain. Reporting from Helena, Mike Dennison, MTN News.
The Bullock administration says it hopes to decide on the nature of those cuts sometime later this summer.
Still ahead, might see a scattered thunderstorm or two out there, but another hot and dry weekend on tap. Aaron has details coming up.
And an incredible story from a visitor to Glacier National Park who had a medical emergency and says without KRMC, they wouldn't have made it. That story coming up here on KPAX.